Oh man. Alright, this is gonna be a long one. Alright everyone, how's it going? Hope you're all doing well. My name's Nagai, and today I want to talk about some of the setups I've been using for Dizzy. Originally, I had an ambitious plan of making tutorials and guides on how to play Dizzy, but given my current ranking, I'd feel a bit unqualified and frankly uncomfortable mansplaining how you should be playing this character. Instead, I thought it'd be a good idea to share with you what's been working for me. Basically, what I've been doing to help me get to this point. As I improve down the road, I do plan on making more videos like this, showing what I've been doing to level up. If you like to follow what I'm doing, don't forget to subscribe for notifications, as I regularly stream and post notes. If you end up enjoying this, liking and leaving a comment lets me know to make more videos like this. Alright, so what am I doing? Right off the bat, we're starting off with a basic 50-50 mix-up. Backdash JK or empty load 2K. We've seen this before. The way to set this up is to cancel a 2D into a K-fish, dash jump, get behind the opponent, and either air dash back JK for a high or do an empty 2K for a low. In an earlier video, we saw that the high hits on frame 19 while the low hits on frame 10, if done as soon as possible. You know, at first I thought this would be too slow to open up my opponents, but after using it for a month, I'm pleasantly surprised that it's quite effective, at least on the random opponents on my level. Recently, I've warmed up to using an even slower mix-up, the air dash forward JP. And again, yeah, players seem to get opened up by it. With that said, I'm curious to know what their frames look like in terms of a mix-up. Let's take a look. As surprisingly effective as this is, there are some flaws we should address. First of all, going for the high usually creates a gap between the fish hit and the aerial hit. In a near perfect scenario, you could make this gapless, but this requires an almost instant dash jump and also the correct spacing. If a Dizzy did 2K 2D into a fish and spent too much time dashing before jumping, in general, the opponent could mash 2P to counter this. You would either jabber out of the overhead or continue blocking the gapless low route, given that they would do the low as soon as possible. Another flaw I'd like to mention is that sometimes a block DP sends you way too far for a punish. A lot of times, you would intelligently bait out a reversal, only to be unable to punish. This situation, in which we should be rewarded for the correct read, can be incredibly disheartening. Man, isn't there any way we can bait a wake up reversal while also continuing our Okizeme momentum? Wait a moment, I know just a setup. Let's just safe jump right into it. Oh, I can't believe I wrote that. Alright, let's just go on. Dizzy can get an auto time safe jump off a throw, empty 5P, hold up forward to jump, and JK on the way down while holding back. As long as you don't mash between JK and the pressure after landing, setups like this one allow you to call out wake up DP reversals without disengaging. Here's another way you can get an auto time safe jump. This is the only other safe jump I could find with Dizzy, so if you know any more, let me know in the comments below. Now, a really cool thing about Dizzy's safe jump, at least in these particular jumping situations, is that they can actually transition into a high-low mix-up. Off the JK, she can double jump and do another JK for a high, or land and do a 2K for a low. If done right, the double jump JK high can also be a safe jump, although doing this option select consistently is actually very difficult. Against some characters, you can just do it without worrying about the reversal. Some players out there might be wondering why this double jump JK works as an overhead, in which normally a jump K at this height would otherwise miss a crouching opponent. I know a lot of you already know the answer to this, but let's review it anyway. I promise it'll be worth reviewing this for other things I'd like to show. Alright, let's do this. It's gonna get a little bit nerdy. Oh man, where do I start? So first of all, when the opponent blocks the first JK, this applies a certain amount of block stun on the opponent. JK is a level 1 attack, which according to Dustloop applies 11 frames of block stun. During these 11 frames, the defender is locked into this blocking hurt box, even if you change your blocking state from standing to crouching during this time. In a 2-hit gapless string, the defender's blocking hurt box from the first hit carries over to the second hit. However, the defender's blocking state can change. For some reason, it seems like most, if not all, fighting games are built this way. I'm not entirely too sure why, but that's what we have to work with. So this allows a double jump JK to land, as it lands within the aforementioned 11 frame window. By the way, this sort of overhead is commonly referred to as a fuzzy, which I believe is a shortened version of fuzzy overhead break, since it breaks the conventional blocking method in this jump in situation, which is called fuzzy blocking. The correct fuzzy blocking method, i.e. when your opponent jumps in on you, would be to block high expecting a high, and then block low as soon as they land, since a low attack is usually the quickest way to open up blocking defense. Anyway, fighting game terms are weird and no one can agree on anything, and I'm sure someone out there is going to tell me I'm using the term fuzzy wrong. Moving on. Let's talk about some of the flaws and counterplay. I should mention that this requires the defender to block the high first. If the defender chose to block low first, yes, they would get hit, but committing to the double jump fuzzy overhead will cause a second JK to whiff. Another flaw is that this setup requires 50% meter for a proper conversion. So this setup into high-low mix is very cool and all, but doesn't actually mix. In my 1000 plus games with Dizzy, I found that most players block this quite often, which leaves me wondering what's going on behind the scenes. What did the frames tell us? If we count the frames starting at the first point of visual difference, it turns out the high hits on frame 7 while the low hits on frame 11. For a high-low mix-up, this should not be something you could react to. However, since the high hits before the low, conventional fuzzy blocking should help neutralize this setup. You would have to hold back just a little bit after the opponent lands before holding down back to block the low. With this knowledge, defending this type of mix-up is manageable. In fact, even if you didn't know this, if you were to defend normally, there's a good chance you'll block this naturally. I thought we had something cool going on. There's got to be a setup that takes advantage of that natural jump blocking. You know, I think we have something just for that. Totally not scripted. Here's yet another fuzzy overhead. To set this up, we need a knockdown that allows a fish to bite somewhat meaty on okizeme. I'll put a definition of meaty on the screen. For example, 5k2d into fish, hold up forward to jump, land, and then do a rising JK. You could also set this up with 2k2d, but due to gravity scaling, we would have to substitute JK with JP to properly connect. If we compare JP with the landing low, we can see that the low hits on frame 6 while the high hits on frame 16. The high hits later than the low, so this would be more appropriate to open up conventional fuzzy blocking if you were to jump in. Now this would be so good if it weren't for the flaws. First of all, the defender needs to block the mid-hitting fish bite high to allow for the fuzzy overhead mix-up to work. Most players who block normally would naturally stand block a jump and aerial approach, but those who know. Basically, if you simply crouch block the initial fish bite, you're safe from this overhead. If need be, you can condition your opponent to block the fish at high by jumping in with the falling button. In my many years of playing Ramlethal and Nagoriyuki competitively, I can assure you that almost all players you meet in bracket will stand block this sort of approach.
Fuzzy.
Oh, so good. This is a dead Eno.
Yeah, I've been hit by that fuzzy so many times.
So another flaw that we should address is that the correct timing and spacing feels very temperamental. A lot of times you would not be close enough for a rising JP or JK to reach. Some situations you can rising JK, other situations you have to rising JP. Rising JP doesn't fuzzy overhead for some characters. Basically, there's a lack of consistency on setting it up. And on top of that, it does require 50% meter for conversion. Alright, so quick side note, one way to make this consistent is to instant air dash fastfall either with a button if you're going to cross up or with an FD, and then do a rising JK. Just be aware that our aerial approach doesn't initially appear to be an overhead. There isn't as much to encourage our opponent to stand block. Alright, anyway, shout out to JSF for showing me this. Alright, ready for some real unreactable shenanigans? Let's talk about the fire spear loops. So this part of the video was put together after ArcSys released the patch notes for 1.43. What you're about to see will not be present after December 23rd, 2024. I decided to leave this section in anyway because, well, I already did the work. Treat this like documentation for historical purposes. Anyway, enjoy the rest of the video. I'm sure most of us have seen or experienced this, and I'm sure there are plenty of videos that have already explained what's happening here. Yo, but it wouldn't feel right if I didn't talk about this after going over 50-50s and fuzzy situations, so let's just jump into it. Basically, with the right spacing, Dizzy can loop her fire spear over and over, and it seems like an infinite block string with maybe a small gap between the fire spears. You can widen the gap by stand blocking the first hit of the fire spear when Dizzy initially summons it. By doing this, you can give yourself more time for an action between the spear loops. Okay, but why? What's happening here? Remember when we were talking about that fuzzy overhead thing? Yeah, that sort of situation is happening here too. We said that in a 2-hit gapless string, the defender's blocking hurt box from the first hit carries over to the second hit. Dizzy's Fire Spear is a 2-hit single targeting attack, which is gapless between the first and second hit. So if the opponent blocks the first hit while crouching, that crouch blocking hurt box carries over to the second hit. This allows the spear's travel time to be slightly longer. In general, if a projectile takes more time to make contact with the opponent, it has more frame advantage. It's just that you don't really benefit from that frame advantage much from a block projectile at full screen. In this case, Dizzy is at striking distance, so she could very well take advantage of this situation. Even though it takes longer for the spear to travel, the duration of Dizzy's recovery animation remains the same. Thus, Dizzy benefits from more frame advantage when compared to as if the defender stood up to block. It's confusing, I know. This is the part where this setup becomes a 50-50, although not in the traditional fighting game sense. If you block the first hit high, you do put yourself at risk to low attacks, but this also helps you escape between spear loops. If you block the first hit low, Dizzy can safely loop another Fire Spear, and by the way, the safely is in quotation marks. Both 2K and Fire Spear are too fast to react to, and if we attempt to fuzzy block, Dizzy is free to delay her low to match the timing of the Fire Spear. And that's it. I wanted to have this video out a lot sooner, but tis a busy season. When you're at this age, you have a lot of normie activities to get to, when all I want to do for Christmas is play video games. A balance patch was announced to roll out on December 23rd, 2024. For the sake of this video, I hope there aren't too many changes to Dizzy. If there are a bunch of significant changes, expect a follow-up video. Anyways, I hope you enjoyed this. As always, a like, comment, and subscribe is much appreciated. I'll see you guys next time. Alright, bye. Dizzy's Fire Spear is a 2-hit attack, which is gapless between the first and second hit. Oh my god. What's that name in the anime? I just realized. Dizzy's a mother. My mother... multi-hitting. Oh my god, it's called Do You Love Your Mom and Her 2-Hit Multi... Oh my god. Oh, Do You Love Your Mom and Her 2-Hit Multi-Target Attacks.